Thank you for tuning in to the Catch a Lift Fund's Coach's Corner podcast. We hope you enjoy today's episode and will consider supporting the Catch a Lift Fund and the veterans we serve. Visit our website for more information about our programs at catchaliftfund.org. If you are experiencing a mental health crisis or suicidal thoughts, please call 988 or the Veterans Crisis Line 988, followed immediately by the number 1. The views and opinions expressed during the Coach's Corner podcast are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent those of the Catch a Lift Fund. The Catch a Lift Fund does not verify or warrant the truth or accuracy of statements made during the podcast, and statements therein are not to be construed as an official policy or position of the Catch a Lift Fund. This podcast is provided for informational purposes only, and nothing herein should be construed as health, medical, or other professional advice. The Coach's Corner is a place for veterans to connect, heal, and share their stories. I'm Melissa Luke, the host of the Coach's Corner podcast. I am a U.S. Army Iraq War veteran, coach, and program director for the Catch a Lift Fund. The Coach's Corner is sponsored by ID Technologies. Welcome to this week's episode of the Coach's Corner. This week we're excited to welcome Cal veteran Randy Beagley to the show. Randy is a U.S. Army Iraq War veteran, Cal veteran athlete, and a construction manager for Habitat for Humanity. Welcome to this week's episode of the Coach's Corner. Randy, welcome.
Hi, Melissa. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thank you. It's so good to have you today. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
It's going to be a lot of fun to talk today, Randy. We have a lot of stuff we want to get into. Randy, you had a very, what I would call, unique life, before the military. Growing up, you grew up as a part of the Fundamentalist Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, or the FLDS Church in Salt Lake City. What do you remember most about your upbringing?
I would say the largest part I remember is how different it was from the outside world, because I got to go to public school for a few years before I went into the school there up in Little Cottonwood Canyon. So I kind of saw a glimpse of the outside and then was thrust into this religion. I always knew I was different just because of the way our mother dressed us. So
what was that like, Randy, going from, like you said, having a glimpse kind of that outside world and going to public school when you were very young to going to the school in the FLDS church?
Sure. So I got to see what I guess I would say a normal kid gets to go through. And gets to experience. And then I was thrust into a very controlled, very regimented type of life that I had no idea I was a part of.
Yeah. Randy, if you would, talk to us a little bit about the difference between the FLDS church and the LDS or Mormon church.
Sure. So the FLDS, they like to pride themselves on being the fundamentals. So back to when Joseph Smith was in charge, and they want to stick with the polygamy side of things, and it's, in my opinion, it's all about control. And the mainstream Mormon church is a lot less controlling than the FLDS. So yeah, it gets a little crazier. I mean, those who follow the FLDS definitely know how crazy it's gotten in the past 10 years or so.
Randy, when do you recall knowing that your father had another family?
So I was around 10 years old. So I had no idea that my father already had another 18 children with another woman. My father decided to take me down to his home, his other home in Provo, Utah, and walked in, and there was a kid same height as me. He was 6 months younger than me. And I said, "Why do you have a picture of my dad on your wall?" And he goes, "That's my dad." And a fight ensued after that.
What was that like after that day, Randy, once you realized that?
It was a lot of questions because
Yeah.
we were not back into the FLDS church yet. So uh, I got to meet my older siblings for the most part, and that was another glimpse into the outside world because they were not in the church themselves.
Okay. What would happen once you went really kind of full time back into the church with your mother and your family?
So one of the things that I noticed right off the bat is what they would do is they would take the school books and they would take black magic marker to them and just erase all the words out that they didn't want you to know. So, like my education from there was just broken all the time because there was never a full understanding of what was
Right.
happening. So, yeah, that was always difficult to overcome.
I'm sure. And, like you said, after that experience, right? Finding out your father had this other family getting thrust really into the church, and you have all these questions. So, as a growing child, as a young man, how are you kind of rectifying all these questions that you have as time goes on?
Well, I think it caused problems for Warren Jeffs at the time because I think I was one of the first ones to swear in his school. I got reprimanded pretty often for the things I did because I wasn't born into the religion. Um, so yeah, that was a bit more difficult for me just because it was somewhat tolerated outside of that school.
Yeah. For anyone listening that doesn't know Randy, could you tell us who Warren is?
So I'm going to say this. He did a hostile takeover of the FLDS when his father Rulon died, um, uh, because the way you're supposed to take over is it comes down from God, and when the next prophet dies, then it's one of the
Okay.
apostles that takes over, and so that didn't happen. He just took over power.
He's in prison now, correct, Randy?
Yeah, I believe he's serving multiple life sentences. I'm not sure if I think he's in Texas, but
Okay.
I haven't looked lately.
Yeah. Randy, talk to us about what it was like specifically as a male to grow up in the FLDS church.
Sure. So you're taught as you're growing up in there that because you hold the priesthood, that you have a higher ranking than any female in the church, your mother, anyone else, and that you will be judged differently than they are.
Okay.
So it's how do I put this? It was a fear tactic used by
Yeah.
them.
Talk to us by contrast what it would be like then growing up as a woman or as a female, because it's quite different.
Sure. So what they do is they try to undereducate everyone, but
Okay.
far more to the females. They literally thought that your only job in the world was uh, to do what your husband said, have children, and keep the house straight.
Yeah.
That was it. So that was your worth.
Randy, when we talked to you before, you described it as you grew up in a cult, but you didn't know it. At what point did you realize that you were a part of a culture that didn't allow anyone to leave?
Uh, Probably in my teenage years. I just thought we were part of some weird religion.
Yeah.
I did not realize that it was as ingrained as it was until I got older.
What was it like coming to terms with that, Randy?
It was pretty difficult because I knew I didn't want that, and without any resources outside of it, I know I had older siblings and I possibly could have left, but I didn't have a strong relationship with them. So yeah, the fear is what keeps you there, and that's
Yeah.
what Warren preached all the time was fear, 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 and it gets ingrained in your soul. So it's difficult to overcome that.
What was the fear tactic kind of specifically that they would use to hold you there to keep you a part of the
Everything.
FLDS? Okay. Yeah.
Literally every single thing. Your thoughts, your actions, your anything and everything that Warren could think of, he would put into a scripture, a sermon, anything you could think of, he would try to do that fear mongering and try to break up families. I mean, it happened all the time. It was crazy.
Did you witness people leave the church in your teen years as you were growing up?
It was rare.
Okay.
Um, it was not common. It did happen,
Right.
but the fear was so strong with people that you were going to go to hell and you were going to burn for all eternity. Blah blah blah. Um, I mean, it was like you didn't have another choice.
Yeah. What was your relationship like with your brothers and sisters as you grew up?
Um, I will say that I love my siblings, but we really didn't show affection. It just really wasn't shown from our parents, and it really wasn't shown a lot in the church.
Yeah.
Uh, I think they wanted to cut that deep tie and make it more like a business relationship.
Okay.
And that's how they kind of structured it, in my mind.
What was it like within the home, Randy? Just kind of like day to day, what was living like?
Um, I mean, okay, so you got to think of it more like uh, Little House on the Prairie
Okay.
in the way we dressed, and then the way we were acting and things like that. It was very, you kept things very simple. You took care of the family. When we were of age to start working, Dad, when I say age to start working, I mean 11, 12 years old.
Yeah.
Dad had us working in his various businesses to support the family.
Randy, when did you decide it was dire for you to leave the community, leave the church?
um, so yeah, this one, I had been thinking about it for years, leading up to when I turned 18. And the straw that broke the camel's back per se for me was when Rulon, Warren's father, brought me into, I will say, the cloak and dagger room, which was a large room in Rulon's home that had curtains all around it, where I assume other priesthood holders were around it, and you
Right.
sat there and talked with him. And he said, "Well, I need you to go home and get ready tomorrow because you're getting married." And I'm like, "Okay, who is it?" And he said, "You'll have to wait till then to see." And I'm
Really?
like, "Oh, yeah."
Oh my.
I'm like, "Well, I'm just not ready to do it." And so I pretty much turned him down. And I don't think that dude had been turned down for most things in his life.
Right.
It caused a big commotion because I don't remember who was sitting behind the curtains at the time, but they went out because my father was in the hallway back there.
Gosh.
And needless to say, my father was less than happy with me
Right.
turning down the profit on getting married. So, yeah, that was the day I started to, I guess, apostatize, is what they would call it.
What were kind of the initial ramifications? So you're in this room, and I would have to imagine that would be incredibly intimidating. Did you
It
feel
was. And it went against every grain of everything I've been taught up to that point. And so it was tearing me apart from the inside out to say those words to him, because I knew that I was going to burn in hell from that point forward. So yeah, that was probably the toughest choice up to that point I'd ever made in my life.
What do you think it was in that moment, Randy? Because, like you said, this is going against everything in you, everything that's been ingrained in you for so very many years. How in that moment, like you said, this is a guy, he is not used to getting turned down. He doesn't get turned down, and you shut it down in this room, this intimidating room.
It went against what I felt inside, because in my soul I knew this is not what I wanted.
Yeah.
And it literally it caused many ramifications down the road for Warren, from what happened from this day. And I know that because in other sermons he gave, he called me out as various things, to make himself seem better.
Right. After that day for you, or even that night, you go home, you have to be with your dad, you have to go back into the house. What would happen to you from that day on?
Oh, it was constant berating about it, that I need to go back and apologize and make it right, get married, do what I'm supposed to do, all those things.
How long would it be until you physically did leave, Randy?
It was roughly about a year. I wasn't allowed to come back to priesthood meetings. I wasn't allowed to, they really didn't want me in church or doing any of those things. I remember we traveled down to Colorado City a lot, and they own the cops down there. So they were
Really?
constant. Oh yeah, the whole police force down there is owned by the church. So they would constantly harass us, pull us over, give us breath analyzers and sobriety tests when we hadn't been drinking at all.
Yeah.
They were just, no matter what, it was constant berating about everything.
During that time, and kind of, you can speak to your whole kind of life growing up, Randy, but I'm even curious, kind of in that year period of time, was there technology that you had access to, within your home? Was there radios? Was there TV? Any type of periodicals that were outside of the church?
So I'll lay this one out there. The first movie I saw was with my older siblings, who snuck me out to go see Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So whatever year that came out,
Yeah.
that was the first movie I remember seeing outside. We had a TV, but it was very limited to VHS tapes that were vetted by the priesthood that you could watch, but they were so dumb. But regardless, yeah, they shunned the radio. They're like, you should only be listening to cassette tapes of priesthood hymns and blah, blah, blah. So anything outside of the religion was highly frowned upon.
How did you kind of prepare yourself to go out and, I'm not even sure what you would refer to it as, Randy, but I'm just going to say out into the world, right? So out beyond the borders of the community, of the church. How were you preparing kind of mentally to do that? Or were you during that time? Was it like, I've struck down this road?
I just kind of had enough of it. And for the males leaving, we had construction background. So for us, we could go get a job.
Yeah,
we could go do what we needed to do. But yeah, it was, you lose all your support. I mean, they literally rip everything from you from when you leave. Luckily, my dad let me keep my truck, and I will say that was probably the biggest thing that helped me. I made the payment on it and did all that, but yeah, beyond that, there was nothing.
Did you leave by yourself?
So that's interesting. No, my cousins, one of my cousins left with me. He was my same age. He was my mother's brother's kid.
Okay.
And we both left. We got an apartment together. I guess we apostatized together because he wanted to marry a girl that was leaving the church down in Colorado City.
Okay.
So yeah, we walked in one day to my dad's house. We got haircuts, which was, holy crap.
So
And
did you have long hair? Like cutting of the hair was a
so
no?
you had to have a very specific type of
Okay.
haircut.
Okay.
You had to have a wave in the front. It had to be a certain length. It couldn't be too long,
Okay.
and it had to be combed all the time. So I went and got a haircut and got some spiky hair going on, and I walked in the house with a baseball cap on to cover it. And my mom saw it, ripped the hat off my head, and that was the breaking point. I went and packed my stuff in the basement and got in my truck and left.
Were you scared to leave when the day came when you left that day?
Oh yeah, I mean, I don't think leaving that way and that is ever easy for anyone.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. It was. You're on your own. There's no one there to do anything for you, and went and got a Blockbuster card. So
Talk to us about that because that's kind of a funny story, Randy. So, right, talk to us about Blockbuster and going in there.
okay, so my cousin that left with me, we went and got a couch and some beds and got our apartment, and then we went and got our Blockbuster cards because we didn't get to watch TV, we didn't get to watch movies, so we got sucked in by it. So every weekend after work, we would be picking up 18 movies, and the reason we got 18 is
Yeah,
because
why 18?
that's what maxed the card out at the time.
Oh my
They
gosh.
wouldn't let you get any more. So we constantly all weekend, that's all we'd have rolling on the TV was movie after movie. And that was kind of our education to the world.
It's
Probably
incredible.
not the greatest thing in the world, but it
Yeah,
was better than the cult. So
right. Oh my gosh. What was it like once you were out, once you guys, were living in the apartment, you're working construction? How were you doing at that point, kind of mentally and physically?
uh, I mean, somewhat better, but not great. I
Okay.
mean, all your everything's gone from you, so you have all the freedom in the world. But the problem is, you've been so controlled your entire life that it was just very hard to center yourself and to know that there was some type of uh, system out there to help you. Um, so yeah, it was. It was difficult for a lot of kids that started leaving because a lot of kids started leaving after I did, and they would fall into drugs and alcohol and other
Yeah.
stuff because they had no parents or anything to help them through that.
Yeah.
I mean, you take everything away, and then all of a sudden
Right.
you have all the freedom. You don't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
It's just there.
What do you think helped you stay out of that? Stay on an upright path moving forward with your life?
Um, I would say uh, after that point of all the different changes and getting to know the outside world, I would say the biggest change for me was joining the military at that point. A couple of years later, um, yeah, it really gave me the structure and all the other items I needed to have a tool bag for life.
Yeah. Once you had left, Randy, did you have any contact with your family, kind of up to the point you joined the army?
So limited.
Okay.
What had happened is they want to cut everything off from you to
Yeah.
try to get you to come back. A lot of kids would leave and then they would come back because of their family members and things like
Okay.
that,
Yeah.
because it was a drawback. They wanted you to come back and be rebaptized. And
Okay.
yeah.
Looking back at it now, Randy, what's your biggest takeaway from your childhood?
Um, I guess for me, it would be that just to follow my gut
Yeah.
and do what I should have done years earlier, um, and know that there are people out there that will support you because I did have people. I just didn't know to ask.
Yeah. Thank you for talking to us about that, Randy, your experiences growing up.
Sure.
Talk to us about that decision to join the army. What drove that?
Sure. So I had a friend who they had just joined the military, and they were back on between that point of uh, basic training and going to their duty assignment. And they had talked to me about it, and I'm like, you get to travel the world, you get to do all these different things. I'm like, why not? It gets me out
Yeah.
of Utah. So went down to the recruiter station in Salt Lake City there, met with them. I wish I would have asked more questions now, but just
Hindsight
because
there.
I might have chosen a different MOS, but
Yeah.
I'm happy for my time in the military for sure.
What MOS would you choose?
So I ranked really high on mechanics.
Okay.
I definitely probably would have gone like at the time I ranked high enough to be a helicopter mechanic or something to that effect. So I definitely could have gone down that career path, and I would have been perfectly happy with it. But no, I chose to blow stuff up. So
I do want to ask you, Randy, growing up in the FLDS church, was the military something you were aware of, or how much of it did you know kind of in your life growing up or even through your teen years?
sure. So the military is always looked down upon
Okay.
because they had been raided many times down in Colorado City by the National Guard.
Okay.
So it was not a good thing.
Yeah.
I'd only heard of one or two other people that had left during many years that had ever joined the military. So it was not a common thing for someone to leave there and go and join the military
Yeah.
at all.
How do you feel like you acclimated to life as a soldier, Randy?
So, okay, so how do I put this? So that is the first time I had a conversation with someone that was a different race than me. So that was very different
Yeah.
because my entire life I was taught that we were superior to everyone else. Um, and whatever respect that was at the time was 100% incorrect because some of my best friends in the military were a different race than I was.
Right.
And it was different for me because I didn't totally understand why it was okay for someone to use certain words and me to not, but I figured it out pretty quick. And we had many deep conversations in the barracks about that stuff. So
Did you enjoy that time
I
training
did.
them? Yeah.
I came in the military at about 260 pounds, left at 178.
No kidding.
Oh yeah, I was ripped, and it was awesome. But just the friendships I built there. I mean, there's some that'll last a lifetime because those guys are. I mean, they're just good guys. Everybody came from a different walk of life, and you're thrust into this thing, and you're there to have each other's back no matter what. So, I mean, it's a bond that can't be broken, you know.
But it's a different kind of bond, right? Than
Oh, 100%.
Than what you grew up with, and where it was such a closed community and out of fear, the brotherhood you developed. Can you talk to us a little bit about that? What was that like for you to feel this kind of parallel type of brotherhood in the Army?
So it was trust, is what I would say. I trusted everyone there. In the religion, there was no trust. It was backbiting, backstabbing, everything. If you weren't watching your back, anybody could have got you. But in the military, everybody had your back. I mean, you're there to support everyone, and it was tough, but it was definitely it taught me a different way to look at life.
Thank you for speaking to that, Randy. So you'd go on to deploy to Iraq, very early in the war, like a couple weeks behind the Marines in the invasion.
Yep.
When you joined, when you joined the Army, were you prepared for that? And by prepared, I mean, did you know that that was a real possibility, that you were going to go to war? You were going to go very early in the Iraq War. Was that something that, was kind of on your mind, or no?
So I had no idea. I was
Okay.
in DEP for 3 months prior to going to basic, and this was 3 months prior to 9/11. So I had no idea. I'm like, I talked to my recruiter, and he's like, "Yeah, I never got deployed anywhere. I
Yeah.
just sat on base for 20 years and didn't do it. I just traveled around a lot." So I'm like, I mean, that doesn't sound bad. Little did I know that was coming.
Right.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
the world
that was sticker
changed.
shock.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sure. What was it like, Randy, getting ready to go over to Iraq?
It was very interesting. So just the training we went through, they sent us down to Fort Irwin, California,
Okay.
get our desert training in. Um, they taught us a lot down there, and they prepared us for the heat and the best they could.
Yeah.
Um, which no one can prepare you for that much heat.
No, no, not that kind of heat for sure.
So it was definitely impactful, especially when you didn't have facilities and you're scavenging off what's already there. So, yeah.
What was it like, like we talked about, being only a couple weeks behind the Marines pushing north, right? Kind of right in during just kind of after that invasion of Iraq.
Yeah, so it was tense. There was a lot of, I mean, your head was on a swivel 24/7. Everybody to you at that point was an enemy. You had to be very careful about what you were doing, follow your road card, and don't make the wrong call because, uh, I mean, literally anyone's life is in your hand. And I think the biggest thing for me was fratricide. And that one was one that stuck with me because they had taught us that the majority of people dying is because of fratricide. And I was like, just stupid crap. So it was more of policing yourself and keeping people safe around you than it was having to do your job over there.
What was your mission, or you and your unit's mission in Iraq as an 11 Bravo, Randy?
So we guarded Taji Airfield and the what's it called over there? They had a FEMA warehouse over there that we guarded.
Okay.
We also guarded fuel depots and other things at Taji for the first part of the deployment, and then they sent us up to Samara East to defend the northern area up there.
What were the conditions like at that time in Iraq?
They're brutal.
Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't. There was no AC. I remember the day the engineers came in and we had to guard them while they fixed the ice plant. The day we had ice was one of the best days ever.
I'm sure.
Once they had that rolling, they started getting it out to all the posts, and then they started giving it out to the Iraqis, and it helped relationships between them and us. Yeah, that was definitely a big helping hand to everyone.
So, like you said, you joined and it was right before 9/11 happened. So this wasn't, these wars, the global wars on terror, they were not in your mind. They were not something you were anticipating. And, we talked to a lot of individuals, and like myself included, right? I joined post 9/11 with the intent I wanted to go to Iraq. I wanted to be in that fight. You joining at a little bit of a different time, and what was it like for you once you were there, kind of mentally? Or how did you acclimate into that life as a soldier doing that work in Iraq?
Sure. So, in my mind over there, it was about bringing me and my group home. So that was always in the back of my mind in anything we did. Prison guard raiding, protecting those around me. That was my goal, and I think we succeeded for the most part. yeah, that was definitely a lot of things happened.
Yeah. Looking back at it now, almost 20 years removed from the war when you were there, what do you remember most about it? What stands out to you the most?
Um, I will say just helping the normal Iraqis actually have a purpose. And that happened more towards the middle to the end of the
Okay.
deployment. We started utilizing them for guard duty and other things like that, which actually gave them monies and
Okay.
a sense of purpose and uh, that they were going to get their country back at some point.
Yeah.
So I was glad to see the rebuilding going on.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just tearing it down the entire time.
Right.
So, uh, yeah, um, as we chased the 52 card deck all over Iraq, it
Right.
was
I remember
definitely,
that. Yeah. Yep.
yeah.
Yeah, the 52 card deck. Yep. Yeah.
We were only, I'm trying to think of how far, we were only so many miles away from Saddam when they caught him.
Were you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
not far, but those spider holes, man, that was scary going down there.
What do you remember that when they got Saddam? Do you remember
Oh
that?
yeah, it went everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody knew it came over the radio chatter that I forget what he was on the deck, but when they called that out, everybody knew, and
Yeah.
it spread like wildfire over there.
What was that like for you that day, hearing that they had caught him?
It was great. I mean,
Yeah.
even the Iraqis were cheering it on because
Yeah.
now they knew that he would never be in power.
He can't. Yeah, he's not coming back.
Yeah, it was a relief on both sides.
Yeah. I remember I was still in high school at the time, but I remember watching that on TV, and there was all kinds of footage around that. I remember footage, in the classroom. They were, toppling statues of him or dragging
Mhm.
them down and different stuff. And I mean, it was a very big thing. It was a very big thing. Um, Leading up to that, right? Uh, so kind of before Saddam was captured and after Saddam was captured, was there a difference in your experience in how the Iraqi people that you were working with, just kind of their demeanor or how they were, how they worked, how they got along with the U.S. or coalition forces?
Yeah. So prior to it, as we worked through the 52 top guys, it was definitely difficult because people didn't want to talk to you.
Okay.
People didn't want to talk to the interpreters. They didn't want to give up people per se because there was a big fear factor. As we
Yeah.
started working through that list and tearing it down, those barriers started coming down because they knew that we were there to take care of a problem uh, and to give them their home back. So it definitely started changing a lot as the deployment went on.
Yeah. Randy, thank you for your service to our great country.
Thank you for yours.
Absolutely. Randy, what was it like coming home from Iraq?
Yeah, so I will never say this again, but coming into Kuwait, that was probably the best damn burger I ever had.
Yeah.
They had two little shacks there set up in between all the tents up there, and there was a Burger King, and I forget what the other one was, but went and got a double Whopper and best damn burger. But
I bet it was. I bet it was.
yeah, that was pretty crazy. That was the first, I would say, real food I'd had in over a year.
Yeah.
So,
What was it like getting back on U.S. soil? What was it like coming home?
it was a warm reception back here.
Yeah.
It was definitely a lot. I expected it to be not as great, just because I'd heard war stories about Vietnam
Yeah,
and things like
right.
that. The soldiers coming back. It was everywhere you went. People saw you in uniform. And they could see that you had been back from combat
Yeah.
because you had both patches on. Everything got bought for you. Just going through the airport, some guy in front of you in line looks back and he goes, "Whatever they're getting, I'm paying for." We had a five-star hotel we got put up by the military, and this guy bought us all steak dinners, and there was
Yeah.
12 of us, and he didn't even think twice about it, and he left before he could say thank you. But it was stuff like that. Everywhere we went, it was night and day difference from like my father-in-law. He
Yeah.
definitely had a bad experience from that, and we had a good experience. So,
Where would your military career take you from there, Randy?
so came back to Fort Carson, and they tried to get me to come back in as 13 Bravo and stay there. I really didn't want to stay with it because I knew it just meant a bunch more deployments. So I tried to move over to another MOS, but at the
Yeah.
time they had locked everything down. And so that kind of made the choice for me to go ahead and depart it after my contract was up.
What was it like getting out of the military for you at that point?
It was good. Started using my GI Bill
Nice.
to go to Diesel Automotive College. Got my degree there, and then I was kind of all over the place. Went back home ish for a while, and kind of was a nomad all over the place. Traveled everywhere for a lot of years.
What would finally kind of get you back to a point where um, you would become settled?
I guess moving here to Omaha. I've been here for since 2010, so came here and bought a house and with the VA loan, which is awesome. Uh, and yeah, just a good stable job, family, everything.
That's tremendous. What was it? Why Omaha? How did you end up there?
Just work.
Just work.
I had started work. I worked for AT&T at the time.
Okay.
Ended up they had an opening here, and so I moved and love the people here, and the cost of living is great. So good place to settle down.
Do you think that, because I think to some degree the military, it gives people, and I mean, I guess you could debate this post service, especially, if you served in Iraq or Afghanistan, but there is some type of stability, at least while you're in, that the military gives you. Do you feel like that stability through those years that you did have in the army helped you afterwards? Once you got out, even though you did go to school, you lived a little bit nomadic for a while, but do you think it ultimately gave you stability that you didn't have from growing up in the FLDS church?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I always now I had friends and I had people
Yeah.
that I could fall back on and talk to and figure just about anything out. So, I mean, just those relationships. And then uh, I will say I'm a very confident, way more confident person now than I ever was in the
Yeah.
religion. So, uh, it instilled that in me. I definitely trust myself, and I know when something's right or wrong
Yeah.
for the most part, and I'll stand up for it. So,
Today, Randy, you work for Habitat for Humanity. And for those who aren't familiar with their mission, can you talk to us about Habitat for Humanity?
yeah, so everybody thinks that we give away free houses. We don't. um,
Yep.
we build homes for low-income people,
Okay.
and we get them into clean, affordable housing that will last them a lifetime, and will help build generational wealth for them. And that's kind of the goal with it is a low interest loan to a good house that uh, won't break the bank. Um, I work in the program where we help fix up older homes
Okay.
of older homeowners typically, to keep them in their house,
Yeah.
which is very important as
Yeah.
people age. So yeah, it's a lot of good stuff for people they do here.
That's tremendous stuff, Randy. Thank you for that service that you're giving. That's just absolutely incredible. How did you start working for Habitat for Humanity, or how did that come about?
Yeah, so I lost my job at AT&T. They started downsizing, And so just looked for a job, took a major pay cut to come here and start building houses. Um, yeah, started building houses with Habitat, and then got into project management, and yeah, I love it.
That's tremendous. What's it like for you, Randy, to participate in giving back to those in need?
I'm I will tell the Betty story. So I went to help this lady. She is in her late 60s, and I go to her home, and her house is in disrepair because she needs a new roof. She has a hole in the back of it, and I met her on her front porch, and she looked at me, and I could tell that she just wasn't right because she just had a ton of stress on her about her home.
Okay.
And by the end of the conversation, I'm like, we're going to help you with this because we can, and we're going to make it work. So at the end of that, she just broke down and started crying on me, and said, "You're not going anywhere until I get a hug." And that's when she just lost it because she knew that we were there to help her and help her stay in her home because she was very fearful that she was going to lose it. So
that's incredible.
Yeah, that one definitely hit the heartstrings a lot.
So. I'm sure. Oh my gosh. Habitat for Humanity, kind of their structure, Randy, do they operate off of, our donations coming in or? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so we get donations, we get grants, we utilize a lot of programs the city of Omaha has, and then we just get them out to the people. Most of the time, they've never even heard of half the programs, even though they're available to them.
Right.
So, yeah, they're great programs for people, and I always encourage anyone I see that may have an issue to call us and see what we can do to help them.
That's tremendous. Randy, where can others learn more about Habitat for Humanity?
Yeah, so our website, they actually keep them very up to date. The international site is great. They keep track of everything that we do. Yeah, we just keep growing here in Omaha. I had no idea that I think we're like the second or third largest in the world.
No kidding.
Oh yeah, for the amount of housing and everything that we do.
Oh my gosh.
There's so much here, and like we have Warren Buffett, his Sherwood Foundation brings in a lot here. They support us tremendously, and a lot of other ones. A lot of corporations around here just support everything that we do. So
that's tremendous. Randy, I want to shift gears here a little bit and talk to you about Catch a Lift.
Yeah.
How did you find Cal?
So my battle buddy from basic training, Adam Sudi, we randomly met at a dinner here in Omaha. I was out with my wife and friends, and he was there with his wife. And I did not recognize him at first because he is just he got a lot more hair since he left. So it took me a minute to recognize him.
Yeah.
And then we went and had lunch a few weeks later, and he told me about the program, and I'm like, man, I'm pre-diabetic at this point, and I got to do something to change everything. He's like, dude, you got to go check this out. They can help you get to a much better place.
That's tremendous. And that's so cool too that you went to basic with Coach Adam. Did you two deploy to Iraq together too?
We did. Mm-hmm.
That's incredible.
We got stationed. That's a weird thing. We both got stationed at Fort Carson at the same time out of basic.
That's crazy. What was it like for you to reconnect with him, a battle buddy, after all those years?
It's actually been really good. I think we're going out to lunch here in a week or two. So,
nice.
Yeah. And I haven't connected with all my friends from there, but yeah, they're kind of all over the place now. Yeah. So it's good.
That's tremendous. You just recently finished up, Randy, the 8-week wellness program through Catch a Lift. Talk to us about that experience and the experience of working with Coach Viv throughout that time.
Yeah. So for me, it was more about the check-in type of thing. I just need someone around who is just going to check in with me and
Yeah.
just hold me accountable to it. I mean, I can find a million reasons not to do it, but when
Yeah.
I have to check in with someone, I'm like, yeah, I better be doing it
Yeah.
because I'm not going to go in there and be like, I don't know why I didn't
Yeah.
do it. So it's just easier to get it done. So it's just good to have that person to check in with for me. So, but all the other tools on the Catch a Lift site is amazing. I mean, there's just a ton of tools on there for any type of workout you want to do, nutrition, just all of it. I mean, so many resources. I mean, it's incredible.
Yeah, it really is. But it's interesting too, like you said, sometimes that biggest thing is just that check in with another person. And I think, all of our shared military backgrounds really lends to that, right? Like, we don't want to show up to a meeting unprepared. We don't want to have to answer to someone and be like, well, I just didn't do it. Like, that's not a
No,
good enough answer.
no.
Yeah. What's your favorite way to stay active now, Randy, and clear your mind? What do you enjoy doing?
Um, I mean, I am setting up my home basement gym.
Nice.
So I just uh, I listen to my audiobooks while I'm working out, and yeah, it's just it's relaxing to just get in the zone and not feel sore the next day anymore. And I'm just glad to be on track to get to where I need to be so I can really beat the pre-diabetes thing
Yeah.
because I don't want to take those damn meds.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Randy, what advice would you give to any veterans who are listening who are looking to begin a wellness journey?
Do it.
Yeah.
Don't wait because I mean we're not getting any younger. I'm 44 now and I am feeling so much better. I just start knocking out push-ups during the day. I'm
Heck
just
yeah.
like just go knock some out at work wherever I'm at and just because I remember back in the military that was the whole thing, right? 2 days after you'd already been
Yeah.
smoked all day and doing all that in basic, and then at night you're doing it again. Yeah, I mean you just feel strong, and as we get older, I mean just do it. I mean it's going to help you later in life. So
Absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Randy, I have one last question for you today.
sure.
What does it mean to you to be a Catch a Lift Fund veteran athlete?
I would say I'm just glad for those that came before me and got this thing going. And I hope that my story helps get someone else motivated to do the same thing. I mean, that's what it's about.
Yeah.
We support each other and keep our journey moving forward.
Absolutely. Randy, it was an absolute pleasure talking with you today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for tuning into this week's episode of Coach's Corner. We're always so grateful to have an opportunity to connect with our members and heal through the stories of our veterans. A special thank you to our guest, Randy, for sharing his story and his light with us all today. It was absolutely terrific. Don't forget to join us every Wednesday live at 1 p.m. Eastern on YouTube for a chance to win Cal Swag and to chat with your brothers and sisters. If you liked today's episode, please be sure to like and subscribe on YouTube and leave us a review on your favorite streaming service. Until next week, keep it real and stay Cal strong.